think we'll just bring the volume down on the glorious Red Army choir. I don't know if you're getting that on your end, but it is
Oh,
it,
it is glorious.
it isn't particularly glorious. You know what? It actually is. I'm not being ironic there. Uh, Damn it if those guys can't. Oh, they do belt it out a bit. Um,
Well, when the alternative is a quick death, I mean, one does become quite passionate in those situations.
Damn it if those guys. Yeah, you say that, but there's something to be said for the Soviet national anthem. It really is a belter. Um, I can understand why it dragged so many horrifying commie scum in. But there's one thing you can say about communists is, my God, do they kill a lot of communists? So that's a plus. Anyway,
Good
sorry,
afternoon, everyone.
terrible joke, and that's the end of any chance I'm going to get monetized. But with my entire, what have we got? A whole I think we've got about 50 subscribers to this channel, so not likely to be monetized anytime soon. So we think we can go ahead and say and do what the hell we like. And you know what? I'm just going to leave this playing in the background for a bit because what's the worst that can happen? They can monetize me. They will literally monetize me for having this playing in the background. So I mean, it won't get me any money, but it will help promote us through the stats. It might actually get us more views somehow.
Are you gaming the YouTube algorithm there? This channel has Soviet propaganda. We love this channel. It must be on the front page. We must all hear it.
Yes, that's right.
And then Russia copyright claims the video.
I am literally using communist overtones to gain the marketing system on this to help monetize my channel. Yes, there's some irony there. I'm happy to say. Well, thank you for joining me, Ez.
It's always a pleasure.
This is your suggestion anyway. Actually, we are going to be going through the Labour Party manifesto. Then you're to blame for this. You brought this on yourself. You do realise this is 107 pages of horrifying drivel. I don't think we're going to be able to get through it in one session, which is why I've put it down as part one. I don't know if we'll get to do a part two or a part three or a part four or what, but we're going to have a crack at it anyway.
Well, I hope it doesn't get to part 4. I hope by then we've already determined that Labour aren't winning the election.
Oh God, I hope not, because there's some scary stuff in this. I'm not gonna lie. I've looked through some of it, and on every page that I've looked at, I've been able to go, no, that's wrong, and let me tell you why on at least 1 or 2 points. So the chances of us, if we do this as a 2-hour stream, which would take us to midnight at this point, that's literally a minute per page, and it's going to take more than that. So we're not going to do this in 2 hours.
That's fine. Let's enjoy ourselves. We've got some entertaining, media here to go through. We'll do it 1 page at a time and see how far we get.
Boy, do we ever have some entertaining media. In a kind of, oh my God, I'm going to kill myself if these people get in kind of way, as far as entertaining is concerned. So, as we've seen with your splash screen that you created for the feels, not the reals, 2019,
I admit to nothing.
About sums it up actually. So that's pretty nice work there. Let's just transition this over so that.
Well, it's just I saw the question time yesterday where they're on there, and it was like just listening to the audience. Is the question of asking people at Boris? That's literally what they were talking about. It's like, I don't care what reality is. You hurt my feelings, and the rest was just history.
Yeah, it was. It was some next level stuff, really. I'm not gonna. Not gonna deny it was I didn't watch very much of that. I caught the Joe Swinson getting massacred, which was
Becoming a living human tomato at the end.
which was mildly amusing. Yeah, let's bring this one over. Actually, let's there we go. Full on Boomer Vision in action. Um, so yeah, no, I saw some of it, but I saw the first one and was left with a resounding oh God, this is awful. I just wish they'd just get on, throw the vote open, and let us get on with it without these um, horrifying debate things because it's an American format. It
Yeah, it's
works
that.
for the
Thankfully, it just doesn't feel like British politics anymore.
yeah, I was going to say it works for the Americans. It doesn't work for British politicians. Nobody's good at it. Nobody's got it's a level of showmanship that isn't really there in British politics, and it just makes me feel like, oh God, can't we have somebody better? And I like Boris. I'm a big fan of Boris on many fronts. I think he's nice and absurd. He likes to go abseiling. He occasionally looks like Cartman, trying to enter the Special Olympics. He's a funny guy. He seems to be. He's quite quaint. He's quintessentially British, and that's marvelous. But when you put him in an American style sort of, oh, we're going to have a debate, but it's it looks terrible, and it just makes me not want to vote, which is the last thing we've got to vote. Everyone's got to
You
vote on
you
this one.
better vote, dude.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm voting. I'm voting. Don't worry
Yeah.
about that. I
But no,
just.
I do completely agree
Sorry, go
with
on.
you. I was watching Boris on Question Time, and it's like the questions that were being thrown at him just left him completely flabbergasted.
Well, as I said, I didn't really watch the Question Time one, but the first one I watched, um, I got the feeling that the decks are a little stacked in favour of Labour. As far as certainly the first one, every single time Boris started answering a question, the interviewer cut them off and wanted to move on to the next question, whereas Corbyn was allowed to ramble a little more on his questions, not a huge amount. They were both cut short on their answers a lot, which kind of good actually. Um,
I noticed that actually, and I also noticed that for every question, Corbyn always got the first answer, which meant that he wasn't up against the clock on moving to the next subject.
yeah, yeah. So I thought it felt a little one-sided, and I don't know if anybody else noticed that, whether it was just me being a bit of a partisan, dare I say it, for the whole thing. But it yeah, no, there was something that wasn't quite right there, and we'll see, we'll see how it pans out. But hopefully, fingers crossed, this will all be over soon. How long is it now? It's cracky. It's not long,
Three
is it?
weeks, I think.
It's not even 3 weeks. It's the 12th. So where are we now? We've got seven.
Well, it's
Oh,
23rd now, isn't
no,
it?
it's not seven. We've got 8 days until the end of the month. So we've got 20 days. 20 days. That's all we've got. 20
Wow.
days until the election, the general election, that is thankfully over before Christmas, and we can either enjoy Christmas or lament the loss of capitalism in England and welcome a new era of communism.
Well, that is a good point. I mean, given that Christmas is the festival of capitalism these days, I mean,
Well,
are they going to cancel Christmas?
is it a festival of capitalism? It's not really. It's a festival of consumerism, and I think consumerism is slightly different from capitalism. But now we're starting to break out the hatchet and split some hairs. But no, I like Christmas is about family. It's about eating far too much. It's about drinking far too much. It's about falling out with someone in your family and calling them all sorts of names, and them calling you all sorts of names. Everyone's got a communist uncle, and or something like that, and you will have a massive row, and someone calls you a filthy capitalist pig, and vice versa, and then you know. invite them to next year. I'm going to buy you a helicopter ride for Christmas. How would you feel about that? Etc. Etc. And it all ends up in a good old laugh and a game of Monopoly. Uh,
No, I think that might just be you.
maybe.
I've never had any of that. Then again, I might not be the best use case.
Well, yes. I don't know how do they do Christmas in your house? I don't know. Do they celebrate Christmas? Anyway,
No comment.
right.
We shall not speak of this ever again.
Um, yes, yes. Where was I? I've totally lost track now. I was making slightly. Yes, the Labour Party manifesto. Did you know it's time for a real change?
You know, I've been thinking we've been due a change. Just maybe not this one.
Been really?
Yeah, I mean, ever since about 2016, we've been due a certain change. Been
Well,
delayed a few
oh, well,
times.
that particular change, that you make a fair point actually there. That's cunning. Yes, I see what you did there. Uh, what has happened here? Hold on a second. That's what I've done there. Sorry, I'm tinkering with display formats so that when I hit the transition button over here, it doesn't look like a complete idiot boomer has done it. And of course, I have managed to do that anyway. Let's try that again. There we go. There we go. Everything fits inside the TV screen now. Look at that. Quality
Do not
production.
adjust your TV screen, gentlemen and ladies.
Yes,
We're not here.
it's time for a real change for the many, not the few.
Oh, I suppose I need to step out now.
Quite. Off you go. Right. Yes. Can you believe? Yes. It's a good manifesto name, that one. Right. So they've basically declared themselves the enemy of anybody that's actually wealthy in the country and gone pretty much all out for the classic Labour line of being the working man's party. Only they're not really the working man's party. They're really the the party of they've gone so far left wing that they are not representing the working man anymore. They're actually representing the unemployed man, the
I have to stop you there because I don't think it's an unemployed man they're representing.
unemployed
You need to
person.
be a bit more diverse, my friend.
You're correct. The unemployed person, the student, and they've gone heavy on the immigration thing, which is not popular in England at the moment. There's an awful lot of feeling that perhaps we've seen enough demographic swing and enough immigration of late. Tony Blair really did open the floodgates quite a lot, and I've seen. Was it? I saw a chart the other day that was saying that something like 18%, 18 or 24, I've got a feeling it was 24% of people in the UK weren't born in the UK. So that leaves a big demographic change that has happened very recently. And this is largely to do with the Tony Blair government and the failure of subsequent governments to close the door that was open there.
Yes.
I'm not making any judgments as to whether that was a good or a bad thing. There are many positive arguments for immigration. And I'm not saying that immigration is wholly bad. I am saying that completely unfettered, unchecked immigration leads to an awful lot of people that are unqualified coming in along with the qualified. There's a strong argument to say that the NHS, for example, wouldn't even be on its last legs, wouldn't even be existing at the moment without a huge amount of immigration. I don't wholly agree with that. But
Well, it's a simple maths game at the end of the day, isn't it? Same with schools. It's like if you say that a country's population is declining in birth rate,
Well,
then
yeah, here we go. This is it exactly. The declining in birth rate, and then the population's increasing massively, and the NHS is overwhelmed. The NHS is largely overwhelmed with pensioners. The big problem with the NHS that the NHS has at the moment, and one of its largest cash sinks, is the elderly. But you've also got things. You do have medical tourism. Now, someone was telling me the other day, this is absolutely non-issue. Medical tourism only costs the NHS 1% of its budget every year. To which over
so what 1.5 billion?
Yeah, precisely. So that's 1.5 billion pounds a year is going towards medical tourism. And the moment I pointed the cash equivalent of 1% out to them, that exact figure, I think I said 1.2 actually, they immediately shut up fairly quickly and sort of mumbled about it being irrelevant and there are other things costing that much money. Personally, if someone told me I could save 1.2, 1.5 billion pounds, I would want to save that.
Well, yes. I mean, imagine what you could build with that. All
Well,
the schools and hospitals and
precisely.
whatnot.
That is literally building several hospitals with that sort of money. So that 1% worth saving, I think so. Um, but according to doctors, charging people for NHS services that those people, if they come from other countries, charging them for that service is racist, apparently. I don't
Oh,
know why they haven't paid their national insurance into the country like I have, like you have, like anybody that pays their taxes, which is why we get NHS, is we pay our national insurance, and that covers everybody in the country who is a citizen in the country to get their medical care. Pretty good system.
hmm.
But no, apparently that's not the case. So they want to allow medical tourism, which essentially means that anybody that needs any sort of medical care can come from anywhere in the world over to England. We'll fix them up, and I'll pay for it out of my back pocket somehow for some reason. I'm not quite sure. I don't particularly agree with that myself. Um, but we are
I,
getting bogged down.
I think it's kind of like, it's a tricky one in some regard because it's like on one side you got idealism, and the other side you got pragmatism, and you're talking about people who, in theory, they observe the Hippocratic Oath. If someone is from another country and they fall over with a heart attack in front of them, you know, the, I'm not against them wanting to save that person's life or helping them get back on their feet, as it were. But yes, the pragmatic issue is
Okay,
nothing is free.
okay, yeah, absolutely. And here's the simple fact: if I go abroad on holiday, I set up medical insurance. I set up travel insurance. Yeah, simple as that. If you go abroad, you travel abroad without travel insurance, and you go skiing or you go sunbathing in somewhere or wherever you go, whatever you're doing, you go abroad and you hurt yourself, you cop medical bills. Everybody knows that, and it is quite frightening. Now, if you do that within the EU, as long as you've got a particular card, as it was whilst we were a member of the EU. You've got the NHS would pay for it, and you'd be brought back, and so on and so forth. But outside of that, you copped medical bills, and those medical bills could be quite horrendous. So you pay travel insurance. It's only a tenner or whatever it is to do that, and it's well worth doing.
Yes,
And
I would agree. But apparently, it's one rule for one, one for another.
mm, yeah, no, quite frankly, no. And there are there are mechanisms actually put in place with regards treaties that will say that so if somebody from I don't know China comes over here and has medical treatment on the NHS and flies back, China will foot the bill to a certain degree of those medical costs, regardless of insurance. And we just don't. What we do is we don't track and we don't charge these things back as they should do. So as a result, the NHS ends up copping it, which means that you and I and the general taxpayer cops it in his back pocket. to the tune of 1.2, 1.5 billion a year. That's 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 not small change. There's only 67 million people in this country. Now, by my rough calculations, that's costing us. I mean, it's costing us basically about 5 pence each in tax per person. Now, that doesn't sound like a huge amount, and I'm sure everyone's. Oh yes, of course, I'll stump up there. 5 pence. Actually, it's not 5 pence, is it? What is it? What are we talking? 67 million. So 1.2 billion divided by 67 million essentially is the calculation we're looking for here.
Well, I'm not doing the hard maths, but we're talking 2 orders of magnitude.
Yeah.
So that's oh, I can't maths right now. Why are you doing this to me on a weekend?
Oops. Oh no.
So I have a calculator app.
So do I. I'm just working this. This is actually quite a lot of money, you know.
Well, it's one of those numbers that gets so big it's no longer money.
Yeah,
if you know what I mean.
It's costing us each 22 quid a year in tax. 22 quid of your tax bill for the year is going towards medical tourism per person. Every single person in the UK. 22 quid. 22 quid and 38 pence, 39 pence of your tax burden a year is going to pay just medical tourism.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't sound like a lot, but
No,
imagine what you could do with it.
No, I'm sorry. That does. That's quite a lot of money. That's 22 quid per person in the UK. That's a fantastic amount of money. If I asked every single person in the UK to give me £1, I would never need to work again. Yeah?
That's true, yeah.
The government is asking for £22 off every single person in the UK just to pay for people that come over to the UK to do medical tourism. I need a new liver or a new kidney or whatever. No. Sorry. Outrageous.
Yes. I know, I agree, especially if they're Chinese. I mean, why are they coming here for those? They've got plenty of them back home. Oh, I didn't say that.
Don't start me on the Chinese and organ transplants. You know where I go with this. China is.
All right. We will rein you back in, Trig. We'll rein you back in.
I spent hours last week arguing with someone on Twitter about China and this and that. It's quite interesting, actually. He claimed to be a Chinese national. He was on Twitter. He was very, very pro-Chinese government, very anti things like the Falun Gong people. I suspect. Twitter's banned in China. The only people that can get on Twitter in China are nobody, in theory. The only people that would be getting on Twitter in China wouldn't be breaking through the firewall, wouldn't be exactly the propaganda mouthpieces that I was dealing with. So I was dealing with something quite interesting there. I think I don't know what I tapped into exactly, but I think he was possibly working for their government. Mind you, everybody does in China. Either way, it was quite a weird conversation, especially when he started inviting me to China. I was like, no, thank you. I like my kidneys where they are.
That's a bit creepy. I've got to admit.
See, what happens is I start claiming that the Chinese government harvests organs for money from people they don't like, and I'm sure they don't do that. They would never do something as horrifying as that, because communists are lovely people. Speaking of communists, the Labour Party Manifesto, as we've drivelled on for half an hour without even touching onto the thing. Bit of a forward, blah blah blah. Election will shape our country for a generation, yada yada yada. Time for a real change. Do you want communists running the country? And wouldn't it be wonderful? Aren't conservatives terrible people that help horrible people like tax dodgers from dodging tax? No, they don't. No, they don't. They don't help tax dodgers. Tax dodgers get pursued. People that actually use the tax laws so they don't pay as much as they use this phrase tax dodgers a lot, and I know a few people that own big businesses, and most of them employ accountants to make sure that they stick to the letter of the law with regards to their tax. Now, if that means going, okay, this is what I can offset this, that, and the other, and make sure they pay as little tax as possible, that's right. That's as they should do.
You know,
Um,
speaking of the Conservatives in regards to this manifesto, I just find it very interesting that the word conservative comes up about 50 times in this document.
have you just done a search on the
I
Conservatives?
did. I was like, because it's like they've got two whole paragraphs in their forward about the Conservatives. Like,
Yeah.
what is this? Is this a manifesto? Is this a hit piece?
It's definitely conservatives bad, communism good. Sorry, socialism good. I mean, it's not like Lenin said that the purpose of socialism is to create communism or anything, but apparently he's a Leninist, not a socialist. Yeah. Leninists, Stalinists, they're all they're flavors of the same horrifying, monstrous mess that is communism. So anyway, they basically start off with a green industrial revolution, which we can't see on the screen because I've mangled it. There we go. A green industrial revolution. What does this mean? Well, not a huge amount, to be honest. Um, they're basically looking into the energy crisis and have decided to make it worse by
Mhm.
focusing on wind energy and
Well,
tidal
let's
energy.
be honest, these blowhards do have a lot of wind.
Well, there is something to be said for that, but I mean the jury's definitely not in with regard to wind energy. I drive by an awful lot of wind farms on a fairly regular basis and see them stationary, not moving, because there's no wind. There's not enough wind to blow them. I've seen a few of them fall to pieces. I know that they do not last as long as they were supposed to. They were supposed to have about 20 years of lifetime, and they don't live up to that. Um, and they cost an awful lot in energy to actually make them in the first place.
That's true. So I mean, if placed strategically, they should give more energy back than they take to make and deploy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But
But
if you just cover all the landscape with them, no, it's not going to work.
you know what they do really well? You know what these things do
Hmm?
extremely well? They dice birds.
That's true though. You know what animal actually gets killed the most by these things?
I don't know. Give
It's
me
not actually birds; it's bats.
bats. Oh
Yeah,
God.
basically the sharp pressure drop near the blades makes their lungs blow up, whereas birds have hardened lungs, so they can withstand it.
God. Poor little bastards. Yeah. Okay. So bats. They kill bats and birds. Lovely.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah. No. And they're not the prettiest things in the world. And well, you and I both know that if you're actually going to go for a good energy source that's actually quite green and ecologically friendly, you go for nuclear.
Ah, the elephant's foot. I remember it.
Okay, the elephant's foot and Chernobyl. That was look. That's janky
Hey,
Russian.
whatever you say, it did make the area very green.
Nice glow, nice green glow to it. Yes.
Well,
Um,
that too, yes. But joking aside, yes, nuclear is basically the current tech to go to for sustainable green energy.
yeah,
And the next step, which is what the EU and pretty much everyone that worldwide are doing, is fusion.
fusion. Yes.
Boris has been very adamant. He wants us to have a net positive gain on the grid from fusion before he finishes his term.
Now I'm looking through the Labour's real change with regards this and green energy. I'm seeing Social justice will define Labour's approach to make sure the cost of green transition falls fairly and mostly. So there's a lot of stuff about social justice. I'm not seeing anything to do with nuclear
Yeah,
here.
this is interesting. Yeah, no, I'm going through this. I'm just thinking, do you
So
think they got Ocasio-Cortez to help them write this section?
I don't know, but
I mean, it does talk about a Green New Deal.
it's a Green New Deal. There's a lot of blurb about making sure that it's done in a social justice manner and making sure that making sure we know that the Conservatives were content to sit back and leave the fate to whole industries and communities at the mercy of market forces. How dare they? How dare they leave
Yeah,
company?
you've seen that bit as well. It's like the Conservative governments were content to sit back and leave the fate of the world to the market force. Yes, that's called a free market, my friend.
It's oh, we need this stuff. Please supply this stuff. Okay. Oh, we don't need this stuff anymore. Please don't supply it. Oh, well, that means that company fails. Yes, it means that company fails, and it means another company kicks off to produce another product to provide the market with what it actually needs. Not, oh, nobody wants this stuff anymore, but we're going to continue making it because there's some jobs there, so we're going to prop this up with taxpayers' money, etc., etc. It's like a freaking coal mining crisis back in the 70s and 80s all over again.
I don't know if this is true, but I'm sure you've heard this parable that back in the Soviet Union, the car factories, they would literally assemble the car as part of like a production line, and out of the other end,
Yeah, this is
because nobody could afford to buy one,
Mhm.
the end of the production line was to deassemble the car and then throw it in the scrap heap.
Yes, it's like the part of their jobs for all process in the Soviet Union was literally digging holes in the ground and then moving on to dig more holes in the ground. Meanwhile, Team B would come along and fill in the holes that were in the ground behind it. Yes, yes, Soviets are and the socialists are very good at literally spending money on nothing. Meanwhile, ignoring market forces and market pressures because it doesn't fit in with their ideological bent.
But Trig, don't you want to work for the civil service filling in holes?
No, no, I will not live in pods. I will not eat the bugs. I will not
Don't
have
get me
sex with
started
the
on the
bugs,
pod people,
and I will
please.
not work with the freaking social service.
Yeah.
I've just switched over to the next page, and it starts with leveling up across the country. Leveling up, because
I believe that's a conservative
no, it
line.
leveling up across the country, as if the country's a fucking computer game. Um, no, I
Yeah,
like. I
but
mean,
the thing is, they stole that line from Boris.
probably it's still stupid. I don't care who used it. It's not a sodding computer game. Um, this is where they're starting to talk about nonsense, drivel, words, nothing in particular that actually means anything.
All this section is
Oh,
bad
okay.
mouthing the Tories
Yeah,
again.
bad mouthing the Tories, and they're going to energy use in buildings accounts for 56% of the UK's total emissions, making it the single most polluting sector.
All right, well, let's go live in caves then. What do they want us to do?
So what
We
they're
live
going
in
to
buildings.
so what they're going to do, yeah, 7,000 new offshore wind turbines, 2,000 new onshore wind turbines, enough solar panels to cover 22,000 football pitches,
What?
and new nuclear power needed for security, energy security. Okay, the only thing there that's actually worth it is the nuclear power station. Right? The solar power, good God, they're toxic. Good God, solar panels are toxic. They also, we're in England. We are terrible for solar power. Yeah, we are not a good country for solar power.
Look, if we want to do solar in this country, I think, and I don't want to get you off on a proud rant, but liquid salt.
Liquid salt.
You know exactly what I'm talking
Are we
about.
talking about solar towers?
Yes.
I love solar towers, but again, it's we're in a mostly cloudy country. These things are only going to work when the sun's out and we can actually get enough sunlight onto the solar tower to melt the salt into liquid salt and to start that heat exchanger up.
That's true, but all I'm saying is like
It's a
if
better
you're going to do
system than
solar, if you're going to do solar and put on the grid, you don't use panels.
yeah.
Photovoltaic is just a bad direction to go.
Oh,
You know,
that
at least all the fact that all the bad poisonous byproducts you make to create photovoltaics, and then you've got the fact that who's building them? China.
yeah. And they don't make them well. They're toxic as fuck, though. They really are really really bad for the environment. And and okay, you're going to cover up 22,000 football pitches of space of land where we can grow plants and food and stuff like that. We're going to cover those. All that land is going to be in the shade now because solar panels are over the top of them. So you either stick them on top of buildings where there isn't land, or you can actually stick them on top of green field. If you're sticking them on top of green field, I've got a better form of solar energy for you that nobody talks about.
Biofuel.
Plants, yeah, biofuel, trees, oilseed.
Mm.
Literally, oilseed rape fields are freaking great. Yeah, grow the ground, harvest it, make some oil out of it. Bingo, biofuel.
You definitely get a better energy per unit area that one.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know what? As you said, you could stick them on roofs, and as we'll get to later on, hopefully, the number of new council houses they want to build.
Yeah, but the thing is,
Just saying.
right? Okay, but they've recently. Right, Labour did this, and then the Tories followed up with it afterwards. They've been disincentivizing people from having solar panels on your roofs for years. Yeah, it used to be a case of you put as many solar panels on your house as you liked, and you could build a battery system in your shed or outside the house, and you could sell your used or your unused electricity back onto the grid. And they've been disincentivizing and cutting down the amount they would pay you for your energy that you produce, and generally they don't want people doing that for themselves. They want companies setting up the solar panels. So it they say with one hand and then they take away with the other. I mean, it's solar panels are a terrible idea. The only thing there, nuclear power. You want energy security, nuclear power. And as you say, let's invest in fusion. Let's invest in fusion. Let's use deuterium. Let's use literally seawater purified into deuterium, or heavy water, deuterium-rich water, and let's create some fusion. Let's make a
Yeah.
sun in a box. Let's make a sun in a box. Let's play God. Because you know what? You know what can go wrong? Very little. If this thing fails, what happens with a fusion plant when it goes
Well,
wrong?
it just kind of fizzles out.
It stops, doesn't it? Yes. It's not like we
Yeah.
get a bomb. It's not like, oh my god, we're going to get the sun released onto the earth and it's going to kill. No, no, it just stops.
No, well, that's the other advantage of the thing. It's like for nuclear reactors, especially small ones,
Hmm.
you need to have, like say the ones they have on aircraft carriers, you need to have weapons grade fuel.
Hmm.
Whereas for fusion, it's hydrogen. What are you going to do with it? You're not going to make a bomb out of hydrogen. I tell you that.
No. Well, hydrogen does go bang quite nicely.
When that is true, that's why we want fusion reactors. I guess it has a lot of energy potential, but it's very hard to make it go bang.
Hydrogen ish.
I'm talking from a weaponizable point of view.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's quite a volatile substance. You only need to mix it with a bit of oxygen. It does tend to go bang quite readily. Two hydrogen atoms to an oxygen atom, and we all know what happens. We get water in quite rapid and swift format. But yes, it's not an easy bomb to make. In fact, there are better stuff to make bombs. It's energy density is much easier with other substances. We're not going to get into those on the live stream. Someone might shut me
Well,
down again on that front. Not again. No one shut me down. Not yet. Um, not on YouTube. But yes, hydrogen. You could potentially, if a fusion reactor went wrong in a big way, you could get a hydrogen spill. You might get a popping, burning, colourless flame briefly until someone switched off the gas. But yeah, it's you're not going to get an elephant's foot. You're not going to get nuclear waste that radiates the living crap out of the local area.
Well, the other advantage of it is also with fission, which is what we use for nuclear power plants today.
Mm,
You need to have external things in order to keep it going, such as a cooling stream. That's why you have to build it by a water source.
yeah,
With fusion, the things that keep it contained, keep it under control, those things are powered by the fusion reactor itself. It's
that's
self-sustaining.
that's right, kids. When you're going fishing, you need a water source.
Yes, when
Mm,
you're gone fishing.
gone fishing, indeed. Gone fishing next to the stream. Yeah, no, you need coolant rods, you need a coolant system, you need coolant towers, you need a whole huge amount of infrastructure outside of that. Whereas not exactly true with fusion. I'm still not totally up on the whole how we suck the power out of the fusion system, because it's, as I understand it, it's not a heat exchange, boil water and spin up turbines type system, is it?
Well, there is a lot of heat produced. I mean,
We could probably do a bit
the
of
test
this,
runs they've done have run hotter than the sun.
which is, I understand it, quite warm.
Oh yeah, yeah. You'd get a nice tan off it, shall we say?
Yeah, yeah, just a bit. I
But
know. Yeah. Mm.
I mean, basically, I'm not a full expert either. I dabble, but you're dealing with strong magnetic and electric forces. Think of it like this: the sun is the biggest fusion reactor we know,
Well, yes,
and it's messing with our magnetic field all the times.
yes.
Solar flares and such.
Mhm. Mhm. In fact, it's partly responsible for the. In fact, it's totally responsible for the ionosphere, isn't it? Solar radiation
Yeah,
is why we have an ionosphere. And
literally true.
hmm, there's there's a source we could tap into.
We do. It's called plants.
Oh, beat me to it. Yes. No throwing big copper wires up into the ionosphere. That tends to work badly.
It would be interesting.
It would. I imagine. I imagine it would be a flash in the pan, so to speak.
Well, kind of. But we're not going to get into that right now. That'll be a bit of a segue.
I think it would be biblical level lightning from the very heavens, actually. But yes, yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, dude, by definition, all lightning is biblical level.
I guess. I guess. Anyway, so yes, solar power. Yes, great. If you're actually growing plants with that solar power, is a wonderful idea. Sticking solar panels up kind of sucks, to be honest. Wind turbines, great if you like minced birds and bats. If you want actual power, nuclear power, much better. Labour
Yep.
don't understand that.
Well, to be perfectly honest, even using modern techniques for gas and coal be a lot better than some of their ideas, even when it comes to clean for the environment. This is one area that China's actually leading the way on. This, they've got basically effectively carbon neutral coal plants.
Yes, yes, I know. That's because they've utilised clean burning coal systems, which we actually have had for years
Hmm.
in over here. I mean, you only really need, if you're going to burn coal and you want to burn coal without a huge amount of smoke, what you need to do is make sure that that coal is all kept at the same kind of temperature, so that it's
Yep.
all burning as perfectly as possible. So what you do is you actually just make sure that the coal is going in at an even level and have a big Archimedes screw type sort of affair going around that's mixing the coal up constantly, so it's always turning and always kept at the right temperature, and you get a relatively clean burn at that point. We invented that, well, back in the 1950s, and didn't utilize it. as I understand it. And same goes for oil. Same goes for all of these things. You can come up with very clean burning. Plus, you can take the outputs and you go, okay, we've got all this carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide and smoke and shit. Let's take that, put a big pipe on the end of the chimney, run that pipe into the bottom of, say, an algae tube, and bubble the gas straight through a big fucking vat of algae and water, and the algae will then feed on the carbon, produce oxygen out the other side of it, and grow huge amounts of algae, which you can then scoop up, dry out, and use as a biofuel.
Or to feed to all the communists who want to eat bugs.
Or to, yeah, another source of food, I guess, because yeah, it's basically protein. Um, and carbohydrates. So yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of ways of making a CO2 producing power plant actually run quite smoothly and quite cleanly, but nobody wants to know that. Nobody wants to look at coal and oil anymore.
I mean, it's not popular. It's the same thing with nuclear energy.
I really,
It's like,
you know what? I really don't give a flying fuck if it's popular or not. If it's the best thing and it works, I don't care. Well, oh, a bunch of screaming fucking green-haired hippies say it's the fucking right way of doing it. Don't fucking care. If they don't know what they're talking about, why the fuck are we listening to them? They can shut the fuck up and go back to their sweaty, horrible fucking pot hovels.
I think they're too busy standing on top of trains, actually. But yes,
Fucking. Right. Okay. Sorry, I got into a rant.
hey, better out than in. That's what I always say.
these Extinction Rebellion hippies do my head in. They really do. Freaking LARPers. They literally have no clue what they're talking about. LARPing and making a pain in their ass of themselves in the process.
Did I ever tell you about my my experience with Extinction Rebellion?
No.
So
Go
this was earlier this year. I was out with a friend in London,
Okay.
and we came up. I think it was Oxford Circus area, and there was this giant pink yacht in the middle of one of the major crossroads near the BBC.
Oh, it's nice to be able to afford a pink yacht, isn't it? To throw in the way of everybody.
And they were just blocking up one of the most like major artery roads in that part of the city.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how much carbon emissions that created, but the point was like as I went through, I'm just seeing all these people dressed up in like ragged clothes, punks, like fake punk style, for want of a better word, wearing when I say fishnet, I'm not saying the style fishnet, I'm literally saying nets for fishing, like cut up fish nets as like capes and such. And I tell you, they hadn't washed those things. They probably hadn't washed themselves either, because it stank to high heaven. Now, don't get me wrong, none of them were being violent or anything, but
oh no,
I mean,
they're relatively benign, but they're such. They don't even understand what they're talking about. Most of them, they really don't. We could do so much more good with the money that is being pumped into that propaganda machine by actually applying it in practical manner.
Any amount of money needed to clean up after them after they've taken over the city for a day.
Oh God, yeah, I know. You'd think people that care about the environment would actually, I don't know, care about their local environment. No, you go wherever they go, the place is an absolute freaking shithole afterwards. I mean, if I go camping, I will go off and take it off into the woods. You go camping, you have a little fire, you cook your food on it, you do this, that, and the other. You break the camp down, you tear it down the next day or whenever, and then you sweep the area, you clean it, and you put the sod of earth back where the fire was, so it literally you wouldn't be able to see a trace of the camp afterwards. Now that is what I call environment. That's what I do when I go camping. It's like I was never there. Now that is environmentalism. Yeah, that is living off the land, using the local area to help you sort of fuel everything, and then returning it to its state beforehand and caring for that environment. They don't care about the environment. They haven't got a freaking clue. They're a bunch of scummy hippie know-it-alls that haven't got a freaking clue. It's like these people that went on about banning fox hunting back in the 1980s and ended up having thousands of beagles put to death as a result. Did nothing except.
I have one image that I think is pertinent,
Oh God.
just for you. I've posted it in general.
Oh God, that.
I enjoy this image just because of the fact they just can't even control their own messaging tools.
Yeah, I saw the video for that. That was something else.
It definitely was.
Let's see if I can get a.
I can't. I was trying to find the image right now. I can't find it, but there was a protest at Trafalgar Square in London, where it was a bit rainy that day, and there was just stacks and stacks of signs that no one picked up, and just abandoned there
Yep.
because no one turned up.
See if we can get that image in on the screen there for the kind viewers. Yes, they had. If I remember rightly, they got a disused fire engine. They'd filled it with
I think it
blood
was
or
beetroot or
beetroot
something.
juice, yeah, to signify blood. And they set it up and they were spraying it all over the side of the building, and they lost control of it. The nozzle came off and they ended up spraying themselves down with the stuff. And it turned out that the vehicle itself wasn't licensed. The person who had driven it there wasn't actually licensed to drive the vehicle, and it was just one gigantic moving violation. And yeah, well, I hope they prosecuted them for said behaviour because yeah.
It's more than that though. Then they lost control of the hose and it just went everywhere. I've just sent you another picture of them soaking themselves.
Well, yeah, the first picture is of them soaking the old gentleman that was
He
part
was
of
a
the thing.
bystander, wasn't he?
No, he was part of the whole thing.
All right.
He was actually part of it. There we go. Let's see if we can get yeah them gushing their beetroot juice everywhere, and yeah, this is a diesel powered fire engine that was just sat there spewing out diesel
Old
fumes.
style diesel as well.
Yeah, it's an old vehicle.
I mean, it's a very classic fire engine. I mean, I do like the aesthetics of it, but one cannot ignore the fact that this was not the cleanest of vehicles.
The irony was not lost on me. I will agree that this was a particularly amusing scene of, yeah, like I said, they're a bunch of useless hippies that really do nothing but harm on the whole thing, on the whole front. If we don't need to get me back on my, we need to reverse the desert in the deserted countries of the world. That would do wonders for the environment.
It would certainly change the environment. I'll give you that.
It would do wonders, certainly. I trust me. Trust me, it will be great. We will make the Sahara, we will make Australia, we will make California green again. And in doing so, we will reduce the temperature of the Earth. We will change weather patterns. We will would actually bring the monsoon season would actually hit Africa as well as just hitting East Asia. It would actually do that. It would spread the monsoon over to Africa and perhaps parts of southern Mediterranean areas. Potentially, because that's where the monsoon starts in very, very small format, and by making that area green, we might give them a monsoon season, which would be wonderful. It would spread even more life and greenery. I mean, it would be a change in the weather, certainly.
Man-made climate change confirmed.
Yes, but for the better, for the good. Um, People wouldn't like it. It would go, the weather's horrible now, but don't care. Um, Extinction Rebellion people annoy me. They really do.
On the note of climate change,
Sure.
honest question: what is your opinion on fracking? Because Labour want to completely ban it, and I know it's controversial, but isn't it one of those things that's context sensitive?
Fracking's an interesting one. I like the term, primarily because I was a big fan of Battlestar Galactica, and fracking in that means a very different thing.
Yes, indeed. Than fracking protesters.
Yes, quite. But when they brought out things with fracking is it does seem to cause a certain amount of geological shifting, and it will cause tremors.
Yes,
And
but so does building a tall building.
yeah, and we're talking tremors on the Richter scale. They're like 1.2, 1.4, or so on. And I mean, I've got friends that come from places like New Zealand and Chile. And when you go, oh, these people are complaining they had a terrible earthquake the other day. It hit 1.4 on the Richter scale. Your friend from New Zealand goes, well, they just die laughing, quite frankly,
Well,
and
hang on.
then call you,
We get bigger than that on the Richter scale of quakes from the Irish Sea. We
yeah,
get something like 2.2, 2.4 at least once a year.
yeah. So what I'm saying is they cause, but it's localized. It's directly underneath them, so they do feel them, and everything does shake, and it gives them a good shake, and everyone gets a bit sort of scared because we live in England, and in England when the earth shakes, that's unusual, and so people tend to lose their chill about it. It's minor. It doesn't do any damage whatsoever to local infrastructure. It just gets a few people's panties in a twist.
But one would assume, just like you don't go mining for oil slash coal under a big city, you wouldn't
Hmm.
be fracking under a big city, right?
No, they do. That's
Oh,
that's
really?
part of the problem. Yeah, the fracking is shale oil, and that shale is underneath areas where it is built up. That's why that's why some people are really pissed off about it because they actually changed the laws um, with regard to land ownership because it used to be land ownership. You would own the land that you're on and everything beneath it, and they changed it almost in line with fracking coming in because if you owned that land and they were pumping out the oil from beneath your land, they'd have to give you money for it. But no, that was changed. So
That's very interesting. I didn't know that.
yeah, now there's good reason why people are not keen, and also there is potential for things like fracking to cause gas seepage to get into the water supply. And then you end up with methane getting dissolved into your water, and then you turn on your water supply, you get a slight gassy smell, and if you happen to light a match, you can fill your bath with water, light it, and you've got flames coming out of your bath or your sink. Um, that that's a little disconcerting, and
That,
I can understand
yeah,
why people
that
don't
doesn't
like
sound
that.
very good.
People don't like that, and I can understand why. Um,
Got to admit though, it would make a cool video.
yeah, there are videos of it happening as well. Of and people go, oh, there's no confirmed link to that being to fracking being a cause of it. It just seems to be the most likely, you know, thing to blame. Um, so there are some problems with it.
But would you agree that a permanent ban on fracking makes sense?
The thing is with a permanent ban on fracking is
It's very absolute.
it's not actually enough almost. You've got an energy source down there, quite a lot of an energy source down there. It's oil, it's natural gas, so it's
Hmm.
valuable. Fracking is a mining technique. They're not saying you shouldn't extract the fuel from beneath these houses. They're saying you can't use this particular technique to extract the fuel from beneath these houses or this property, this land. They're they're banning the technique, not the extracting of the minerals.
Right. So basically, they don't really care. They're just saying, "Oh, this is a popular topic for everyone. Let's jump on the bandwagon."
Bingo, bingo. So you could come up with a another technique for mining it. Um, Call it something else other than fracking, and you'll be welcome to do it. And you'll end up with the same problem all over again. So this fracking ban, smoke and mirrors, as far as I can tell. Um, the problem is we've got an energy crisis,
But do
and
we?
yeah, we do. One of the biggest problems we've got is actually not only have we got an expanding population, even though we've got an aging population, because whilst the replacement rate of indigenous people in the UK, only dealing with the UK, I mean the worldwide massive population problem, but in the UK we've got a population that's increasing, even though indigenous people have a very low birth rate that's below replacement. That's a problem in its own right. You've got a group of migrants, of immigrants, of refugees, etc., that are coming in that have got a high birth rate. We all need energy, so we've got this ever expanding population that doesn't need to be expanding because, if it's purely related to the migrant increase is the reason why we've got an increased population. That's something we
Refugees.
not just
Sorry, I'm not trying to
not
interrupt your train of thought.
not just refugees and
No, no, no. It's not refugees. Doesn't seem like the right word for it. That's all.
well no, it's not actually, because there's no one at war. In France isn't at war, Wales isn't at war, Scotland isn't at war, Norway isn't at war. There is no country next door to us where refugees would be coming to us. There are people in having refugee status from the Middle East who should be seeking refugee status in the next country available to them that's not at war. So Saudi Arabia, Turkey. Turkey has an overwhelming problem with them, but there's a huge number of people from all over the place. There's saying there is a refugee crisis is not uncommon these days, but we digress. We've got an increasing population problem. We need more housing, and on top of that, we are now getting to the point where everybody wants to start moving over to electric vehicles, which is actually the next section on the manifesto is actually on exactly that, electric transport.
I have a few choice things to say about electric vehicles.
Well, there's many things to be said about electric vehicles. Technology is quite fun. I'm quite a fan of some of the electric vehicles. I actually quite like the new Cybertruck thing that Tesla's just brought out. It reminds me of a few car games I used to play in the 1990s.
Yes, indeed. But I doubt that's what Labour's thinking about.
Gotta love those 8 polygon vehicles, and God bless Elon for building an 8 polygon vehicle. But that aside, electric vehicles seem to be a thing that are coming in, and they're really pushing this, and the horrifying amount of lithium and nickel and various other rare earth minerals that we're going to need to sort of dig up for the production of those batteries, which not the most ecologically friendly production system ever, to make the batteries. We then have huge numbers of these electric vehicles on the roads. Where is the power coming from?
Well, here's the thing. I would actually argue that if you were to compare, say, 10 kilos worth of the best battery you can get your hands on versus 10 kilos worth of petrol, which one has better energy density and storage over time?
Oh, the energy density question, that's a good one. The energy density is, of course, fuel. Is, of course, hydrocarbons.
But it's not just that. Ignoring the fact that modern fuel companies basically put stuff in the fuel to force it to go stale, petrol doesn't lose its energy over time in any significant manner.
It doesn't exactly go stale, it just goes jelly. Basically turns to Vaseline.
Well, no, you're right, but the official term is it goes stale.
Yeah.
Batteries, basically, if you leave a battery sitting for a week, it's going to lose some of its charge.
Yes, but it's not just that. It's where does the power come from that goes into the battery?
Fossil fuels, ultimately.
It's going to come from the grid. So, if everybody has a car, an electric car, maybe even 2 electric cars, their electricity requirement for that household is going to basically double. So whereas we've got a population of, say, 67 million, I think it's thereabouts, it might be a little higher. Don't know how many houses that is, I could look it up, but that's
It's millions upon millions.
Let's call it, say 20 million houses. It's probably more
Sure.
than that. 20 million households in the UK, at a guess. All of a sudden, we're going to double, maybe even triple the energy requirements per household in terms of electricity draw off the national grid. Now, sure, we're not going to be using petrol stations. We're going to be using electricity, but as I said, that's got to come off the national grid. So the national grid is going to need to supply 3 times more energy than it's currently producing or being required to produce. So we're going to need 3 times more power stations than we currently have. This is why we've got all of these wind tower
Well, it's more than that as
turbines
well.
being put up.
Put it this way: if you're passing that much more electricity into residential areas,
Mm-hmm.
the infrastructure needs to be upgraded to be able to handle the extra load.
Bingo. Bingo. So we've got all kinds of problems that electric cars are going to bring out that aren't being addressed by any governments yet. We're going to need to totally restring all of the freaking power cables, double the amount of pylons, a whole host of problems that come with electric cars. No one's really looking into, it seems.
When I look at it, if I were to put on my tinfoil hat for a moment here, get a bit conspiratorial, as it were,
Mm-hmm.
electric vehicles actually, compared to traditional petrol-based vehicles, the range is less and the charging points are few and far between. As I say, if I'm putting on my tinfoil hat, I might say this is more about control of the populace than it is about being green.
Controlling people's capability to transport themselves freely around the country at will.
Well,
My,
let's be honest. If the power's coming from a grid instead of a can of petrol, it's a lot easier to switch it off, isn't it?
you make a point. I'm not going to go down that particular conspiratorial rabbit hole, but yeah, there's something to be said for that, but being a potential possibility. Also, with electric cars, there's there's a good strong possibility that you can build a kill switch into it very easily, so that you don't want someone traveling,
Literally.
you press a button and stop that vehicle.
Well, I mean, yes, there's that, but you could literally put a kill switch into it. I mean, those things are quite volatile, shall we say? I don't know if you remember the old Samsung grenades from a few years back.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you make a fair point actually. The energy density of the battery that's in a Samsung phone or Apple phone is about the same amount of energy as a hand grenade. So if you
Yeah.
think about that, is the equivalent of
All I'm going to say is, the failure rate on these things, in a catastrophic sense,
it's actually
goes
quite
up
high.
over the number of charger lifetime.
Yeah,
So if people are not maintaining their vehicle enough, because
mm,
petrol cars don't do this, they don't spontaneously explode because you
it,
didn't give them an MOT.
they don't spontaneously ish. No, they don't go up in. I mean, we've seen electric car fires are horrendous as well, and
Now imagine if those car fires are happening in your driveway at night.
I don't have to imagine. I've got pictures.
Yeah, but I'm 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 just thinking in more urban environments where the houses are a lot closer together. I mean, oh god, that could get messy.
Yes, not just messy. It's downright horrendous. Because when they go up,
Boy, do they go up! Yes.
I mean, you're talking big fire. It's ferocious. It's very very hot, and as you can see there, there's not much left over. But
Oh, geez.
they've been known to cause damages like that. If someone had one in the car in the garage next to the house gone.
Yep.
It really is not something to be trifled with. Um, Electric car fires are very nasty, and you can't put them out.
Oh no, not easily. I mean,
If you're gonna, if you're a fireman, you've been called to a house fire. You've gone, oh, okay, let's put this house out. It's on fire. Let's spray some water on it. Oh
oh
God,
no, 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 no. You
yeah,
do not want to do that.
precisely. You spray water on on a fire that's being caused by
A breached lithium-ion battery.
yes, you're gonna make it explode violently, bang, because lithium and water, not a good mix. So yeah, that I'm not a fan. And next generation of batteries could see sodium batteries.
Mm.
Um,
There is the solid-state battery. Still a few years off, I reckon.
but yeah, we so there's room for improvement with electric cars, and I'm actually, for all the things we just said about them, I you know what, I'm not totally anti electric vehicles.
If they're done right, which they're not right now, I haven't run the numbers, but I would be willing to say that electric cars today are probably more damaging to the environment just by being run than regular vehicles.
Well, maybe. I mean, look at what Tesla just gave us. He gave us the glorious Cybertruck. I don't know. I've been memeing about the
Well,
Cybertruck.
I see no cars. I just see geometry.
It's glorious. It's glorious. 8 to 12 polygons. Who needs anything but a ruler and a pencil when designing a car anyway? Um,
All I'm going to say is it's going to terrify all those people who couldn't do maths in school.
Okay, that's some very basic geometry there. I mean, there's no curves, there's no need to know pi. This is simple stuff. I mean, the only curve on it is the wheels, and that's because you don't want anything other than circular wheels. I mean, it would just be bumpy. Even the goddamn wheel hub coverings are hexagonal. No, I mean it's fun, and Tesla are doing some interesting things with cars, electric cars. Electric cars are a thing. We're not going to get away from them. And I'm a big petrol head. I love my petrol-driven car. I love the sound it makes. But electric cars are a fun technology. But, and it's a big but, we shouldn't get carried away with um, them being the be all and end all. There's a lot to be said for keeping. I mean, biofuel. Biofuel might be the better answer than electric cars. It really might. We can keep vehicles on the roads that are already on the roads, because to produce the electric cars, the ecological impact is about the same as running an existing petrol car for about 20 years.
Yep.
Um, it's NIMBYism. It's taking that petrol pollution device and taking it away and sticking it out elsewhere. That
If you
pollution,
don't see it, it didn't happen.
yeah, that pollution is now happening at the source of manufacture and at the power station, rather than as it's driving around, because it is its own little power station as a car. Um, so yeah, they're not seeing the bigger picture. Is all I'm saying. And Labour are only ever interested in policies that are going to keep them popular for the next 4 to 5 years and win the next election. They're not thinking big picture. And if where they are thinking big picture, they are not thinking it in terms of doing anybody in this country a favour. They're thinking of big picture is how do we swing the demographics so that we stay in power in perpetuity, which was Tony Blair's game.
Although, quoting them, They, unlike the Tories, they will not destroy trade their environment in pursuit of trade deals. I've moved ahead a bit to the environment section.
You went to an environment section.
Mm.
Oh God, right. Nature restoration. You see,
It's got a picture of a bee on it, so it must be good.
it must be. I'm not actually looked into this. Land is a public good, but it is not a common asset. No, it's almost all privately owned. What are they saying? They want to.
Well, they've made the claim that polluted air has caused 40,000 deaths every year. I don't know where they're getting their numbers from that, because that seems a bit iffy to me.
Yeah. Source would be nice on that one. Citation, please. Are they gonna? They're gonna buy back the land, aren't they? Is that what they're saying here? Let's have a look. A Labour government will maintain agricultural and structural funds, but repurpose them to support environmental and land management and sustainable methods of food production. We will invest more in more country farms to replace those lost. You know what? Good. A lot of this actually doesn't sound too terrible.
I don't know. I'm not sure I like the idea of them saying that the land should be owned by the government.
No, they're not saying it. They're implying that only 20% of land was owned by public sector. Sorry. Yeah, it's halved. You see, the thing is, they will say this, and they'll talk about the green belt, which are the belts of area of land between cities that is protected from building on. And they'll say this here, and then later on we're going to start talking about the need for building new houses. At no point they're going to make the connection of where they're going to build these new houses. Because whenever you want to build new houses, you only got one place to build them, really. And that's the areas between existing cities, because all the stuff in the cities is already built on. So the moment you want to build new houses, you're building onto the greenbelt.
And it's not just houses, because you have to provide transport links, shopping,
roads, shopping,
hospitals, schools,
communications. Yes, the whole lot.
Yeah,
the whole 9
broadband for all.
Broadband for all. Don't you just love the sound of that? Broadband for all. We're not. I don't think we're going to get to the broadband for all. Where is the broadband for all?
I think it's quite far in. I'd have to go back up to the contents page. Hang on.
Because there's a whole chunk on mental health care and the NHS, and so on.
God, this thing is massive.
I know. It's 107 pages, and it's almost all wrong.
I can't even find it in here, just looking at the headings.
We haven't even gotten to things like the £10 minimum wage, which, bearing in mind...
Whoa, are you serious?
Yeah.
I hadn't heard about that.
You haven't heard about the £10 minimum wage? Let's cut to the chase, because that's a really important one.
Okay, yeah.
They're saying that there is going to be a minimum... They will instigate a minimum wage for everybody in the UK. Anybody working will be on £10 an hour as a minimum.
That doesn't sound too great.
Well, on the face of it, it sounds great, doesn't it? You go, I've got a job, I'm going to be paid £10 an hour. Brilliant! What do you think is going to happen to all of those companies that are...
Right, I understand where you're going with it, but my take on it is that, to paraphrase Tim Pool, of all people, the value of an hour of man's work is equal to the value of man's work. Doesn't matter how much you pay them, everything's relative to the time. If you increase the amount you pay someone for an hour, that just means that in order to support that, the product you sell now has to be charged for more, which means that the buying power that you've now gained quickly goes back to status quo. The only
Yeah.
people who lose out when the only real change happens when you increase minimum wage is people above minimum wage. Over time, their salaries, their buying power degrades.
Well, yeah. It's not just well, yeah. Tim and yourself have just summed that up very very nicely. As you say, you give people a minimum wage, and then the value of everything goes up in the process, and as a result, your buying power has gone nowhere. What you've also done is you've stopped in the short term a huge number of small companies from being able to actually function and operate, because there's a delta, there's a difference between when the law comes in and the effects of that buying power. And
Oh yeah,
in the meantime, you're going to find a huge number of companies that are just scraping by. They can afford, they can afford 3 people on part time. They're running a little shop, 3 people on part time to run the shop, plus a manager, and that's great. And they're paying them the bare minimum. They're paying them, I don't know whatever it is, £5, £6 an hour.
they're paying them for the work's done, and they're able to turn a small profit.
Now you bring in the £10 minimum wage, and
That profit's eliminated. This is what happened in California.
yeah, and suddenly those companies have to shut down. Suddenly, fast food joints start implementing. I mean, there's an awful lot of electronic kiosks that have come in recently,
Oh,
anyway.
what you've seen some of these automated McDonald's they have in London, haven't you?
They're not just in London, mate. They're everywhere now. They're everywhere, and they are
They're
costing people
hideous.
jobs. Yeah, they
They're
cost.
hideous. As you say, it costs people jobs, but more than that, it's like it's the social fabric's being degraded.
Here's the worst thing, mate. Here's the worst thing, is the function of the cook in
The
there.
chef.
The chef in a
Hey,
McDonald's.
I
Really?
know, I know. I'm just trying to be nice.
Chef. Okay, the guy flipping burgers, yeah, has he puts the piece of meat on the hot plate. It goes ping after a certain amount of time. He flips it over. It goes ping. He sticks that piece of meat on a bun. They put the salad on it, and it gets put in a box and it's slid down a slide. Then the server puts it in a bag and gives it to the customer. All of those things are actually pretty easy to automate. It's
You need the incentive to do the R&D and the initial installation cost.
they've already done it.
No, but the point I'm trying to say is, if you make it harder to keep people employed, that's the incentive.
Yeah,
Because the
you
upfront cost for automation is higher.
yeah, but what I'm saying is you've already got them. They've done the R&D. You can now have literally a conveyor belt that takes piece of frozen meat from freezer down a conveyor belt, cooks it on both sides to a perfect degree, and will stick it then a pre-packaged level of salad, gherkin, mayonnaise, and whatever. Slap it on a bun, slap it straight into it, and it will come off the end of a conveyor belt as a Big Mac or a quarter pounder. It will take less time. It will be and then you can walk in. The human being will be able to walk into a McDonald's or a Burger King or wherever, order his Whopper or his Big Mac or his quarter pounder or whatever he's having, and then stand there and a hole in the wall will present him with his burger, with his drink, with his fries, and there won't be a human being in the building. Now, the only flaw to that is that the human that's walked in is going to have to pay for it. Now, if that human being doesn't have a job because all of the jobs have been taken by robots, maybe he has a job. Maybe he does have a job. Maybe his job is to go around that building and sweep up all the bits of stuff that have fallen through the cracks. Oh no, we've got Roombas to do that. Maybe he can oil. Oh no, he won't need to oil it because you can have dripping pipelines that will drip oil into the machinery to make sure they're oiled automatically. There's going to be almost nothing in those services that will require a human being. We've already seen factories all over the place that produce trainers, produce cars with almost no human interaction. We are going to, by cutting out the food services industry into automation, we're going to cut out huge amounts of workers. These these incentives that Labour are bringing in are actually going to hurt the low-level workers so much. They are going to cost so many people at the bottom end of society. Those jobs that actually are quite easy to automate, those simple menial tasks, the guy serving the coffee, yeah. Who's going to serve me my coffee? A robot's going to serve you your coffee. That's who's going to serve you your coffee in the future if you keep pumping up the price of human labour.
Well,
That's what
that's
Labour are
the,
doing. Labour are literally killing the labour force. They're making them
it's,
poverty stricken. They're going to end up on welfare, and then they're going to need an even bigger welfare state to pay for them. Well done,
that's
Labour.
okay. We'll just create new jobs for them in the NHS. We'll invent jobs.
Yeah, it's great. Changing someone's nappy,
But
that's just
but
a wonderful job. Can I
let,
please
let,
do
let
that?
me add to this though. Raising the minimum wage is not the be all and end all. Now, I'm not a fan of 0 hour contract. I think it's a terrible idea. However, if you're going to raise the minimum wage and get rid of 0 hour contracts at the same time, these small companies now have no options.
Yeah.
And again, I'm saying I'm not a fan of 0 hour contracts, but a company needs to be able to be commercially viable at the end of the day. It's like I hate to be the guy to say it, but money is important. It's the only way for the economy to function.
Yeah. At the moment, yeah. It's This is not a good manifesto. It is not good for the average working man. The only thing this is good for the big companies because the big companies can pay for this. Big companies can stump this up. So a
Oh,
startup
yeah, but
company. So,
dude, they
so I,
won't be paying for it.
no, they will. Right. Here's the thing. Right. I'm a startup company. Hypothetically, you're a big multinational company. You sell widgets. Now I'm a startup company, and I've got a widget that's better than yours. I'm going to come in and I'm going to cause you some problems. I'm a disruptive technology. Only now, I can't afford to get my company off the ground because I'm going to need huge amounts of support from various places because I can't afford the labour costs, and you
That's
can,
okay, dude.
and
I'll
you can
come in and
you
offer you a quarter of the value of your company for controlling stake in it.
precisely because you're outsourcing your production to Malaysia or China or wherever. I can't afford to do that. I'm a little guy. I'm just building my stuff in my shed. It stacks everything in favour of the large company. Minimum wages and the removal of these, it stacks everything in favour of the large company that can afford the workforce, that can afford to go, you know what, no problem at all, because here's the thing is I'm going to offset this and I'm going to offset that and I'm going to pay my taxes in this country instead of that country and I'm going to produce my goods abroad over here. And the little company that's just starting up, the small man, the entrepreneur, he gets shafted every which way from Sunday by these types of regulations and laws. Labour are literally sucking the cock of big business and doing over the little entrepreneur by these types of laws. They can for the for the workers, no. No, they might think they might have the best intentions at heart. They really might, but they're not. They're just sucking down on big fat corporate cock once again.
Well, look, the socialist mindset naturally leans towards the idea of corporation. It wants to deal with big faceless entities because then you have to deal with real people.
Sorry, say that again.
I'm saying that the whole socialist mindset is there is a strong preference for dealing with corporations rather than individuals.
Well, they certainly hate the individual. They look at worker units rather than.
And yes, well, of
Um,
course, this whole mindset that goes around these days is every worker is interchangeable.
well, yeah. I mean,
The 70-year-old man is equivalent to the 8-year-old girl.
we used to have have in companies back in the 80s and very early 90s, you used to have personnel departments. And a personnel department was what is now known as human resources. They changed the name of personnel to human resources in around the early mid 90s.
Hmm.
Human resources. There's something horrifying about that phrase. I've always found it quite horrifying. I always liked personnel because it seems like it's got a personal touch. It's dealing with people. Human resources sounds like they are. It just reminds me of the film Soylent Green, which I can't believe they actually made into an actual product.
Is it made from people?
Worse, it's made from soy, which turns people into something else. I'm not quite sure what.
I only asked because there was that psychologist recently who was like, we need to eat dead people to save the planet.
Some people. Yeah, I know, I heard that. Like I said, I will not live in the pod. I will not eat the bugs. I will not have sex with the bugs. No, I will not.
Fair enough. I don't.
Have you seen some of the things that they want you to live in? They're literally repurposing sewage pipes and making homes in them.
I have not.
Have you not seen that?
Do you have a picture?
I will find you. I will find you a picture of the sewage pipe apartment blocks.
I mean, I did see a while back of. Do you remember the when you used to go down to the beach and they had all those little wooden chalets, those tiny little like huts, no bigger than a garden shed. You know, at the back of the beach. Because I've seen them like converting those into housing in certain places.
Hold on a second. Yeah,
right.
no. Here we go. Let's slap that over there as a reference, and I will throw you the link directly over to so you can see it. This is I'm not kidding. This is a sewage pipe that hasn't been used and has been converted into a one-man apartment.
It literally is a pod.
Yes.
I mean, okay, you know, I get what they're going with. Like, may as well use something that's not being used. And I'm sure some architect thinks it's really trendy and new age. But
well,
buildings are square shaped for a reason.
Oh no! Right, hold on a second. It gets better.
It gets better.
Wait
a second. How tall is this?
Oh, it's about 8, 9, 10 foot tall, maybe a little higher than that.
So that means there's basically no floor space.
It's tight in there, dude.
You're gonna have about maybe 2 foot of standable floor space, left to right. That's tiny.
Are you seeing this?
No, not yet.
Let me just throw this over to you. I put that in general for you. You can see that.
I've seen this movie actually. I think. What do they call it? Ready Player One, where they just stacked like pods and caravans on top of each other.
Yeah, it's getting a bit that way, isn't it?
All this picture is missing is that Greta Thunberg image, like draped on the building.
Jumps on the opposite wall, looking at you, going, "How dare you!"
Thunberg is watching.
You have ruined my life. How dare you? Yeah, no, it's pretty freaking dystopian. Now that image, as I understand it, that is not an actual image, but not a real image, but it could be. That's certainly their plans.
It makes sense, given the shape of the thing. You're going to want to pack them in like that. Obviously, they would have to be staircases, but
yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Just no.
I,
I do
I,
not want to see this in my city.
I can't think of any worse place to live than something like that, and that's kind of what I'm seeing plans for cropping up left, right, and centre, along with the eating the bugs and the other nonsense.
The thing is, the people suggesting these things don't have good understanding of either human psychology or human biology.
Oh,
We
people will be
we can't.
cracking. People will be cracking like eggs in these things. They will be going absolutely mental. They will be getting depressed.
You're right.
They'll be killing themselves. You'll end up with suicide rates all over the place. You'll end up with depression rates. You'll end up with huge amount of people on antidepressants. You'll end up with it's just the worst world ever.
You say that some of that won't come to pass in quite the same way, because if we're feeding people dead bodies and bugs, you know, I'm expecting people to have things like rickets. You know, the human body can't survive on that sort of diet. Not to mention the fact that eating cannibalism actually is bad for pretty much any animal on the planet, because you can't
Creutzfeldt-Jakob's
digest.
disease, anybody?
Sorry,
Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease, bit of
no,
prion
you know what I'm
disease.
talking about,
Yeah,
don't you?
yeah, yeah.
It messes up the brain.
Yeah. You'll end up with prion disease. You'll literally end up with your brain melting.
Yeah, you're effectively poisoning yourself, because you're getting a toxic buildup of materials you can't break down in your body.
Yeah, free
That
radicals.
the only reason it doesn't kill you
Prions.
normally is because it's in such small quantities.
Yeah, you'll end up with prions.
Yeah.
And you do not want prions.
Well, no, of course. I feel like someone needs to make a put its lotion on the skin again, but
Yeah, it's a scary old world there that they seem to have planned, and this is all part of the oh well, the population keeps on increasing and we don't know what to do about it. Tell you what, we do. We knew what we were doing about it back in the 80s. It was all sorted. We got the world or rather the Western world, to actually stop reproducing at greater than replacement level, and just tick along nicely at almost exactly, if not slightly less than replacement level, and the world was going to be perfect. We'd cut the problem of demographic shift and demographic climb.
well,
We'd
we
kill
didn't
it.
actually plan for that. It was just it turned out that there seems to be a kind of like a stabilizing force in human nature.
Yes, and
Uh,
then in the 90s, the government at that time decided that was obviously a terrible idea. And what they were going to do is they were going to ship in thousands and thousands and thousands of people, so that the population would keep on rising.
well,
And as a
that was a
result, everything's
consequence of
fucked up.
people being encouraged to not have families.
Well, partly, but we got to that hadn't really happened. We were talking about the result of the 80s. It wasn't that people were being encouraged to not have families. That's been happening more recently.
No,
Um,
it started back in the 80s. It's just we're only starting to see the effects of it now.
yeah, but yeah, we got replacement level reproduction pretty much sorted. Bring in the third world. That what could possibly go wrong? Well, now we're screwed.
And so are they, because the ones who come in are if we follow the official lines at least, are the best and the brightest. I mean, we're taking all these doctors away from the third world.
Yes, yeah, literally.
Engineers, scientists.
Anybody with get up and go from the third world, from Africa, from India, from wherever, anyone with get up and go has got up and gone, and has come over to the Western world and found that they are living in as third class citizens.
In
Unfortunately,
pods.
not in pods at the moment, but they're certainly in council houses, and they're not having happy lives of it, where they could have become something amazing and transformed their own country. They've come over here and become taxi drivers, if they're lucky. Some have become doctors, certainly, but some have become engineers. Some,
It's like
on
the
the
old
other hand, haven't.
stereotype, isn't it? You know the stereotype of the collapse of the Soviet Union, and all the nuclear physicists came to the Western world and
Hmm.
became janitors and taxi drivers.
Ugh, yeah. You know what? Back in my day, many years ago, I was working as a recruitment consultant,
All right.
and I actually encountered this. I was, for my sins, one of the fairly thankless jobs I was doing was we were supplying workers into an agricultural establishment that was growing carrots and cabbages and lettuces and that type of thing. And they needed workers to sort cabbages and carrots and lettuces into those that could be used and those that couldn't be used. And they've got, regulations and standards and various templates that these things had to fit through to be considered, fit for human consumption or fit for farmyard consumption for animals, for animal feed.
Right.
And it was very, very basic manual labour work. And we had huge numbers of Polish people coming over and taking these jobs. Yeah, they would happily do these jobs. We couldn't get anybody else to do these jobs because these jobs you needed people to be arriving for the minibus at 4 in the morning. They'd get on the minibus, they'd be picked up, they'd be taken off, they would do a 12-hour day, they'd be picked up at about 5 o'clock in the evening and brought back. And they were actually getting paid quite good wages.
Mm-hmm.
And we had huge numbers of Polish people doing this work. And there was one chap I remember, because I spoke to him and he spoke perfect English. And I was looking at his CV going, it says here you're a surgeon. You were a surgeon in Poland? He was like, yes, I was a surgeon in Poland. I've come over here because, this, that and the other. And yeah, he was a surgeon in Poland, had for whatever reason come over to England to find a better life in England than he had in Poland. And we had he was working for he had to get his medical qualifications over again, because his Polish medical licenses didn't work in England. And so whilst he was working towards getting the medical licensing worthy of English, the NHS standards, he was working in a cabbage field, picking carrots and cabbages and measuring them and making sure that they could go and be either fit for human or animal consumption. He was an actual surgeon picking bleeding carrots, and bless his heart, fair play to the guy. But it did strike me that we'd stolen a surgeon from Poland and were putting him to work in a carrot field, which doesn't really seem. I thought that was a terrible waste of resources, right there. I mean, I don't know. He might have been the worst surgeon ever. He might have been kicked out of all the hospitals in Poland, and as a result, he was coming over to England to retrain. And really, quite frankly, he was only fit. He might not have been fit to cut a carrot, but I don't know that. As far as his CV said, the guy was a surgeon, and he was picking carrots. That seems like a bit of a waste to me.
Oh yeah, but
so yeah,
I've seen fair play
that.
to him. He was working to improve his life. And I've got nothing against that.
You know what? I think he was probably an incredible surgeon, because he was incredible. You would chats with him and he'd be going, have you got enough people for the work tomorrow? If you like, I can phone my cousin and my sister and I was just like, well, bring them down. We'll get them signed up. He was recruiting for us. He was great. He was a great guy. He wanted to work. He wanted to work hard, and he wanted everyone in his family to come and work and earn money. Honest as the day is long, and they were all a good crowd to go for a drink with, and on the Friday nights as well. Great people, great guys. Got a lot. You couldn't get an English person. We got people. We were going around the job centres, going, "We've got work for you, if you want work." And Dolly's was like, "No, I'd rather stay on the dole. I'm not getting up for that. It's 4 in the morning. I don't go to bed until then." It's like,
what?
Yeah. This is
Bloody
the problem.
students.
No, they're not students. This was the unemployed, the long-term unemployed types. The social services, it kind of breeds this. When you've got people that sat on the dole, and they've got unemployment benefits and housing benefit and council tax benefits and everything else, they sit there, they do the maths, and they go, well, all of this lot together is paying me 10 grand a year or whatever, and I've got all of this. I don't have to pay these taxes, etc. And they're disincentivized from doing low-paid jobs, even though if they did a low-paid job they would much more likely to be able to get a better job, or they would have the option to work overtime and increase their income. They're not interested in that. They'd rather sit on their arse and smoke weed.
Well, I mean,
That's what a social security does for you. It actually incentivizes that behaviour. That's what Labour want. Labour love these people.
hashtag not all, my friend.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely not all. And
I'm sure you agree with me that the idea of having that safety net is still important to our society. It's just there are always going to be people who look to take advantage of an easy gig.
Yes and no. I've been there. I've used that social security safety net. I think there are better ways of doing it. I think that it's a trap that people get caught on social security, and then they're better off staying on it than getting off it, at least in the short term. And that trap literally holds them there, and they become a voter for Labour, because Labour sits there going, "I'll give you more money. I'll give you more money. If you vote for me, I will give you more money." And they go, "Great, because I've got no way of getting more money other than them giving me more money." And who do they get that money off? Well, they get that money off the taxpayers, the people that actually do go to work and generate income and pay taxes. What they don't realise is they're also taxpayers. So when they get given that money, and then they then go down to the shops to buy their fish and chips or whatever, they're paying that tax. They're paying for their dole money in the taxes that they're paying on the products that they buy. They're paying for that money. They're paying for it in their prescriptions. They're paying for it all over the place. I had an argument with a doctor recently over the NHS being free, and I was like, it's not free. If you looked at how much you pay in national insurance a month, and they went, I've never thought about it that way. Can you believe a doctor had never thought about the fact that the NHS wasn't actually free and they were paying for it every month? Did
the doctor not get a paycheck?
Don't get me started on that conversation. That was a while back, and it was a very annoying conversation. And the doctor actually told me that only the maker knows what is really wrong, really how the body works, and it was a thing. I'm not sure whether I was talking to a witch doctor or which doctor I was talking to, but certainly there was some confusion there as to.
Dude, can your science explain how the witch doctor calls down the lightning, though?
Yes, it's static electricity caused by a potential difference between the Earth and the clouds.
Damn you! You've ruined the magic. I can never look at the world the same again.
Give me a large metal rod, and I'll show you how I can guide it into a single spot as well. Let's just plant it on the ground here and then fly a kite from it. Who was it that did that?
I think that story is meant to have a key involved in it.
Yeah, was that Edison that did that?
No, it was Franklin.
Franklin.
I don't know if he actually did it or not.
Ben Franklin. He was I liked Ben Franklin. He was a good guy. Yeah. So
I never met him.
No,
bit before my time, my friend.
I'm not that old.
You know, I'm a bit younger than you, right?
I'm not that old. Sod off.
But talking about paying for things and money going to people, can I direct your attention to the first paragraph of page 60? I was just browsing while we were chatting.
Oh, let's go to page 60. Oh, that's page 62.
It starts, we will give workers a stake in the companies they work for. I think you should have a read of this and see how calm you are at the end of it.
We will give workers a stake in the companies they work for and a share of the profits they help create by requiring large companies to set up inclusive ownership funds, IOFs. Up to 10% of a company will be owned collectively by employees, with dividend payments distributed equally amongst all, capped at £500 per year, and the rest being used to top up the Climate Apprenticeship Fund. The cap will rise to ensure that no more than 25% of dividends raised by IOFs are redistributed in this way. What on
So, what do you
earth?
think?
What on earth is a climate apprenticeship fund?
Well, it's going to probably be a new ministry of what have yous that, Labour do like to set up like new funds and groups.
Yes.
So,
Quangos, you mean?
well, it depends how bad mood or good mood I'm thinking right now as to how charitable I am in my interpretation, shall we say.
Okay.
One could look at this as the pension fund for the MPs.
Okay. Let's have a look at that in a bit. Let's have a let me have a quick think, because what we've got there is what looked like a commentary about turning every single company into a co-op, essentially a cooperative.
At least in part, yeah.
In part, but then capping their dividend payments at £500 a year. So essentially a token coin flip. Here, have a penny.
Basically, his 10% of the company's profits, and for everyone in the company, they get £500 a year out of that. Anything left over goes back to the government.
Yeah.
When I say back to the government, it was never in the government in the first place.
No, it suddenly gets siphoned off into a government apprenticeship fund thing. Now, because that 10% of that. So you've got a company. It's here. It is. It's sitting there. It's a medium-sized company. Let's use some easy figures. It earns 100 million every year.
Yeah.
Now 10% of that is 10 million.
Yeah.
And its employees, say it's got 100 million. How many employees might it have?
Could have maybe like 500 employees for that.
I was going to say 1,000 just for ease of maths. Let's keep it in ones and tens.
That would be unusual, but yeah, okay.
Okay, 1,000 employees, and 1,000 employees owning 10% of the company in total.
Well, they wouldn't be owning the company. It would be set up that like one guy is the commissioner in charge of that 10%, and everyone would like let that person, and maybe they vote for them, and he represents them at the AGM.
Yeah. So hold on a second. Let's just do the math. 1,000 people multiplied by 500 quid.
That's £500,000.
It's £500,000. So.
Yeah. What about the other 9.5?
Precisely. £9.5 million is suddenly buggering off into a tax hole that the government has created.
And believe you me, I bet you that will be taxable as well before it goes down that hole.
Probably. This is just another way of siphoning off whopping great chunks of company revenue into taxation.
It's like you said earlier, if everyone in the UK gave you £1,
I wouldn't work again.
This is the government doing the same thing, but with every company. You notice it doesn't put any limit on size of company there.
No, not at all.
I mean, I'm glad that they put a cap on it in the sense that small companies don't get bankrupt by it. Mm-hmm. But even then,
I mean, imagine this is Google, right? Imagine this is Google's UK offices. How rapidly do you think they would disappear out of the UK and somewhere else? Because how many employees would Google have in the UK? 10,000? 5,000?
Google, I don't know across the UK, but in London we're looking at probably at least 10,000 because they've got all their catering and security and management.
But wouldn't their catering and their security and their management work for smaller companies that are employed?
No, not in the case of Google. They have a secondary company that owns all of that.
A secondary company, so they'd be siphoned off.
So you got your Alphabet, right?
Yeah.
Then you got your Google, and then you got another group called Ruse.
Okay, let's not go too much into detail and let people know, etc. But yeah, so you've got so Ruse would end up actually earning very little profit, And Google ended up earning huge amounts of profit. Google wouldn't employ anybody, and this other subsidiary company would earn no profit, and they would end up, the large companies would end up basically hiding away the profit in subsidiary companies, and employees being owned by umbrella companies that work for, and they would get out of this, and what would happen is your medium and smaller companies would get clobbered hard.
Well, no, what would actually happen, dude, is big companies like the Googles of the world will the only full-time employees they have will be members of the board. Everyone else will be forced into contractor roles, which means, in theory, that the pay would go up for those individuals.
Yes.
But the Googles of the world will claim that back off of stuff like this. They
Yes.
can afford it. A medium to small company can't afford to turn their entire workforce into contractors.
Nope.
A, because of the cost, but B, because contractors can leave very quickly.
Yeah.
And then all that money you lose trying to replace them.
And so once again, as we said before, they are playing right into the hand of the big multinationals, and the small companies and the entrepreneurs and the medium-sized companies get the shaft in a big way. And yeah.
Now,
nice one, neighbour. Good work.
Yeah, no, it's a very scary thing. Also, you think about that 10%. Now, medium small companies, I can't speak for all industries, but I'm going to pick one out of the hat. Say tech startups in the game industry as well.
Mm-hmm.
They, in their early years, and some even in their late years, 10% is more than their average gross. They won't make that much in a year.
Well,
so that wipes off their actual income.
The dividend payments. See, it's dividend payments. It would have to be based on profits.
Well, my concern here is that, you know, if you're taking 10% off the profits, right, off your net earnings in a year, right, how's that going to affect people's pensions?
It'll probably kill them.
Yeah, you'd have to pay the pensions to afford this.
Here we go. Check this out. Rewriting the rules, page 62.
Right, before you jump ahead,
okay.
I just want you to read one more sentence.
Okay.
The sentence immediately after what we were just reading.
Well, and we will explore other innovative ways
of
responding to low pay, including the pilots of universal basic income.
Oh my God, there it is. And they just put in one sentence like that, just hidden away.
So don't worry if your company isn't paying you enough. We'll pay you more on top of that. Even though that will mean taxing people more in the process.
So I'm going to guess universal basic income is going to be close to or in line with minimum wage. Makes sense.
Yes,
so
a full-time minimum wage should be a universal basic income, I would hope.
Otherwise, well, one would hope. But that means, so based on what they said earlier, £10 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that a year? Do you know what I mean?
£10 per hour per year.
So it's £80 a day. That's 400 a week.
Yep.
Right, I'm going to stick the rest into calculator because maths. 400 times 52. Well, let's call it 50 because holidays. So that's 20 grand.
Yeah.
20 grand times how many people over the age of 16?
Over the age of 16 and under the age of 65?
Well, they're going to abolish retirement age, I'm sure of it, but go on, let's say 65.
Okay, so let's call it 45 million-ish?
Okay, so 20,000 times 40 million is it's like almost $500 million.
Yep.
A year. That's a lot of money.
And I'll tell you what, I could save that by just cutting out the medical tourists from the NHS.
Yeah, that's and then some. That's 3 times the size of it.
Yeah. Quickly segueing back to the beginning of the conversation. Yeah, that's how much that money is. So there are ways of saving it.
But then we're assuming that the population doesn't rise.
Which is going to.
And we're assuming that that's
It's going to have
the other problem
demographic
is that
shift
would
too.
well that's irrelevant for what we're talking about right now. But
Racial,
yes, I was going
ethnic,
to say
religious
that
demographic shift.
half a billion a year has to come from somewhere. If we're running out of jobs, how are we going to pay for this? Raid the pensions again?
Sell the organs of people coming in for income and for health tourism.
I suppose we do know at least one country they'll be buying.
No, that's a horrifying idea
Of
of
course
people
it
skidding
is.
out. I mean, I'm not serious about that. How are we going to pay for it? I have no freaking idea. Communism, socialism, whatever it is, it sucks. It doesn't work. It doesn't take any notice of the market. Doesn't take any notice of the free market. It just screws over innovation. It screws over the small businessman. It screws over anything other than gigantic corporations and the few privileged. This is why it's only the fucks in London that actually like this thing. You ask any
Hashtag not all.
well, most of them.
No, I have to defend my honour. As an honorary Londoner, I have to say that I do know that there's about maybe 4-5 people who are not like that.
You're not a Londoner. Londoners talk like this, mate.
Well, I'm definitely a something. I mean, these days, though, being a Londoner means you live in Brighton.
Yeah, maybe.
But anyway, let's move on. What was it? Page 68, you said?
62. I just sort of saw the beginnings of something horrifying there.
Where was this?
Where were we? There we go. Rewriting the rules. There we go. Social justice also means leveling the playing field between small and big business and ensuring that democracy and accountability are valued across society, including the private sector. Yeah. Businesses are the heartbeat of our economy. Businesses are the heartbeat of our economy, creating jobs, wealth, and innovations. So fuck them. I mean, but the upper echelons of corporate Britain have been corrupted by a culture in which the long-term health of a company is sacrificed for a quick buck, for a few short-term culture has been
What?
For a few. Hold on a second. Sorry, the punctuation in this is I missed it.
There's a colon there.
There's a colon there, yeah. A short-term culture has seen some treasured companies' assets stripped, leaving workers and small businesses, suppliers, and pensioners in the lurch. Too often, the link between reward and long-term performance is broken for short-term greed.
Well, Labour would know all too well about how to do that.
I was going to say that mostly happened. I think they're having a dig at the NHS and the Conservatives.
I mean, all I have to say to that is citation needed.
I was going to say this is just lies. This is just wrong. Big business and big business owners and large businesses actively plough huge amounts of their profits back into their own companies.
Well, that's how they're successful.
That's how they stay successful. Companies in the 90s died because they didn't invest in the right technologies. One of my favourites is the story of Motorola and Nokia. Right?
And Nokia.
Nokia and Motorola were massive mobile phone manufacturers back in the 90s. The Nokia Razr V3 or whatever it was, flip phones, and the Motorola flip phones everybody had one. They were like the iPhones are today, but they were ploughing technology back into their own company, but they were ploughing into design and so on, and they looked at this web application protocol and went, that's quite horrible. We'll put a bit of development into it, but we're not that interested. Meanwhile, Microsoft and Google and this company, this weird little computer company that made design computers called Apple, were ploughing lots of technology into smartphone technology, and oh my god, they kicked the living daylights out of Nokia and Motorola. Motorola went bust. Nokia nearly went bust. Google ended up buying all of Motorola's technology.
That's right. Yeah, no, I remember that.
Yeah, literally bought all of it. Um, and 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 as a result, we now have Android and Apple phones all over the place, and you barely hear the word about Motorola phones or Nokia phones. Nokia are still kicking about out there. They just about hung in by the skin of their teeth. In fact, I hear they're bringing out the V3 again, or the Razor as a new product. Do you remember
Oh,
the
really?
yeah, the Razor flip phone? They're bringing it out again as a smartphone. It actually looks quite fun. I might be
You're not
convinced.
having a boomer moment there, are
I,
you?
I
Being
might be,
nostalgic.
I might be convinced if. I mean, I've said I'm pretty much done with smartphones because they annoy me for various reasons. But the Motorola smartphone, the new one, not the Motorola, the Nokia Razr smartphone, it looks kind of fun, I must admit. And maybe I'm having a boomer moment. I don't care. Um, Let's see if I can find a photo of it because it's. Uh,
But no, as you rightly say, companies need to innovate, expand, adopt. They need to invest in themselves, which means they need to have good, business focused people who understand their industry in order to you know plow that resource in the right direction. But then, you look at here, and just a few paragraphs further down, it's like they're going to require every board to have a third of their members be elected by the workers.
yeah,
That doesn't sound terrifying at all, now, does it?
look at that. I mean, I'm doing. Here we go. I'm going to advertise for Nokia. Nokia can pay me loads of money for all of the 3 viewers I'm getting on this one.
Other phone models are available.
No, 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 no. This is going to be absolutely awesome. It's going to kick the ass off Apple. I hope it does anyway. Because look at that. That's really cute. It's got a folding screen. So you
God, that kind of looks like the phone from one of those sci-fi films, where you slide out the screen.
Now, what happens is it's the old the old Razr phone. So it folds, and then you flip it open again, like the old phones did, and inside you've got a single uh, TFT screen on the inside. I I want to see how well they've done it. It's probably going to have all sorts of problems because folding screens is really new tech.
Well, it's inherently not durable, shall we say?
We'll see.
It's got a moving part where one shouldn't need to be. That's going to wear out.
We'll see. We'll see. It depends. They might have done it in one of a number of ways, and if they've done it in the right way, it if it's just two screens that have got a seamless hinge, then great. If it's one screen that actually does fold, it could snap. It could wear out quite quickly. It could have all sorts of problems. We'll see. But I quite like the look of it, to be honest. But I've yeah, okay, I'm a boomer. I saw The Matrix and I liked flip phones and clicky. I mean, I used to love that. You press the button, the phone just extended down. I need an exit. Always loved doing that back in the day. I know you're looking at me as if I'm a boomer. Don't. Um,
No, I'm not looking at it. I'm just pretending I don't know you at the moment.
Great. The
But
Matrix was a fun film. I don't care. The other two, not so
yes,
much, but The Matrix, fun
that
film.
is true.
Um,
But yeah, no. So as I say, though, getting a third of the board to be elected by the workers does not seem like a good idea for long-term business strategy.
it won't work.
No, of course it won't.
It won't work. Uh,
You'll end up with cults of personality in every big business.
Precisely.
I mean, I'm not saying that isn't a case in some businesses already, but you're giving power to the bad actors effectively.
Mm-hmm. Oh god, and the next page is all about women inequalities, and then racial equality, and then LGBT plus
Oh god,
equality.
yeah, Social Justice Commission.
Yeah, it's right. Okay, here's a tip for you guys. Yeah, human rights, rights for everyone, equal rights for everyone. Let's stop fucking dividing people up by chunks and then giving them more rights and less rights depending on whether they stick cock up arse or into vagina or whether they're black or brown or whether they whatever. I don't fucking give a shit about the colour of their skin, their gender, their fucking sexuality. They all get the same rights, and if they don't like it, they can fuck off. Simple as.
And it don't matter if you're black or white.
Yeah, precisely.
To quote the song. by the artist who shall remain nameless, just
It is literally utter nonsense. Starting to divide people up and go, oh yes, well these people need special rights because of this, and these people. I mean, they go on about the wage gap. They go on about the wage gap between men and women, and we all know that is completely fucking bunk because it's personal choice that creates the 13% wage gap, because it's actually an earnings gap based around choices. Not an actual, oh, this woman's in this job and the man's in the same job and the woman's getting paid 13% less. No, she's not. She's getting paid the same because there's already laws in place to say that if she's getting paid less, she can sue the company. No, she gets paid the same. The only way you're going to correct that 13% is to tell her to make different choices in her life. And that is up to her. Her choice is to make whatever choices she fucking wants. And if she chooses to take a job that pays less because she wants to work in healthcare rather than, experimental fucking petrochemical engineering, then so be it. That is her fucking right. You're not going to fucking change that by paying women more for the same job. And that's roughly what they're saying they're going to do here.
But Trig, for Labour, the true measure of fairness is not social mobility, but
It's
social
outcome.
justice.
It's outcome. What they're after is equality and outcome rather than actual equal choice and equal rights. Same with...
Dude, they are saying in no uncertain terms that they think the concept of social mobility is bad. To quote, but nobody becomes a billionaire through hard work alone, and as such, inequality has grown. So they're saying that it doesn't matter whether you work hard or not. You're not going to succeed. Therefore, we're going to level the playing field, and doesn't matter how hard you work. You're going to get the same rewards.
Yeah.
So no one's going to work.
Which disincentivises people, which makes me... Literally, at this point in time, I'm looking at this and going, okay, if Labour gets in, I might sell my house and leave the country. And I'm not a very wealthy person, but if I'm thinking, sod this, I will find a better country to live. I don't want to live under a communist regime.
If you're going to do it, you'll have to move quickly, because I expect they'll put in an immigration tax on British nationals.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, you can't take our money out of the country. It's the government's money, not yours. No. Yeah, that's very likely as well. And everyone's welcome to come, but no one can leave. Be like a freaking Hotel California, Roach Motel. Because that's what communists do. Remember the old Iron Curtain, the wall, the Berlin Wall wasn't to keep people from coming in. It was to keep people from leaving. Yep. They shot you if you left. And I can well believe Comrade Corbyn will do exactly the same, because he's a vile piece of work.
Are we talking about the man who, before he became a millionaire, said the problem with this country were millionaires and billionaires? And last week said the problem with the country were the billionaires?
Yeah. He's scum.
It's funny, that, isn't it? Can I give you a very chilling statement?
Go on.
I'm just going to quote this bit, and you're gonna feel like chills, terror. Labour will replace the Social Mobility Commission with the Social Justice Commission, based on the Treasury, with wide-ranging powers to hold us and future governments to account. If that does not terrify you, I don't know what will.
Hold on a second. I've got a simple answer to this. I don't know if you can see the screen.
Dude, behave. Oh God, what are you fetching?
I have a hat for this.
Oh, I haven't caught up on the stream yet, and I'm already feeling the cringe.
Yeah. Oh. This is cringe. This is some.
Oh,
I've just
oh.
realised it's flipped, isn't it? I'm gonna have to change that. Hold on a second.
Yes, you've been raising the wrong eyebrow the entire time.
Damn.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I've just worked out what it says. No, dude, no. Taxation is not theft. Taxation is a very important part of the social fabric of any country that wants to really be a country.
I didn't consent to it. If someone's putting their hand in my pocket and taking my stuff without me consenting, what is that?
No, because you did consent to it.
No, I didn't. No
Yes,
point.
you did.
No, I didn't.
You implicitly consented to it by living in the social under the social contract. Do you want your country to have an army?
To go and fight wars in other countries that
no, forget that, because if a country doesn't have an army, it's not a country, not for long at least.
I will accept that a certain amount of taxation is barely required,
and it's not theft because you want the services to exist. That's why I'm saying it's because you're part of the social contract. You know, if you don't want to be part of it, then go out in the woods and live off the grid.
Look, I wish.
And then all that money of yours that you stuff in your mattress has no value anymore anyway. Because, having money...
Okay, who told you about that?
Sorry?
Who told you about the money in my mattress? I want names.
You're a boomer. I know you have money in your mattress. I have a sense for these things, shall we say.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Right.
Where on earth did you get that hat from, though?
I bought it off online. It's right. I'm quietly a bit of a fan of We Are Change. They're I hesitate to call them a news site. They're sort of an activist site, run by a guy called Luke Rudowski. He's a friend of Tim Pool's, and he got on my radar because he chases the Bilderberg Corporation or organization around the world and harasses its members and generally calls them a bunch of evil corporate Illuminati types that are secretly planning everyone's life without being elected or and Bilderberg Group. Look up the Bilderberg Group if you do not know who they are. Look them up. Bilderberg Group.
Dude, you're talking to me.
So you know who they are. Good.
I probably know them through like 3 degrees of separation or something.
Oy vey.
It's a small world. That's all I'm saying.
But yes, Luke Rudowski chased Sam around the world, and so occasionally I will buy a product or two of his from Teespring or something like that because they make silly memeing hats that make me look ridiculous, and I'm not ashamed of looking or afraid of looking ridiculous every now and then.
Well, look, dude. When it comes to buying crazy shit off the internet, I mean, you could do worse. I mean, it's not, let's say, just picking something random. It's not a suit of armor, for example.
No. If I were to be sort of...
I mean, could you imagine just in this day and age walking on down the street in a suit of armor?
I know. You would look ridiculous. I mean, imagine riding a bike with a suit of armor or just turning someone's house at random and wearing a chest plate of armor. That would make you significantly more ridiculous than the silly old man wearing a make taxation theft again hat.
Well, yes. Though then again, I mean, there's that, and then there's wearing a ghillie suit around the place.
There's always a time and place for wearing a ghillie suit. That time and place is playing army in a field at the weekend with your friends, or actually playing army for real. Look.
Yes, I suppose some people must be.
Don't hobby shame me, dude. Okay, I play airsoft, and yes, I own a ghillie suit that I made myself, and yes, I also I'm not ashamed of this. I'm happy to look. My name is Trigger Hippie, and I play airsoft.
Hello, Trigger
And I
Hippie.
am not ashamed of this.
Welcome to Airsoft's Anonymous.
Bastard. Yes, I'm actually pretty good at it as well. If I don't mind saying so myself, I have a significantly positive KDR. Last time I played, I wiped out the entire enemy team by myself with a sneaky hidey place, because ghillie suits work and camouflage and concealment is a powerful tool in the in the guerrilla warfare tactics. And yeah. Anyway.
Oh. Hey, dude, have you seen the picture on page 65, Women and Equalities?
Oh God, do I have to?
You should. They've made a mistake.
Have they?
Have a look at the flag in the picture.
65, you say?
Can you see any lines of colour missing from that flag?
Brown, black.
Yeah, they don't. They do not have the. It's not an inclusive LGBT.
The addition, as I understand it, the addition of the brown streak in there, whilst it wasn't actually someone wiping their ass with the flag. I don't think it was actually totally picked up, because that was bringing race into what is essentially a flag to do with sexuality and gender rather than race. The brown streak was not. I don't know why I know this. Why do I know this shit?
I couldn't comment, dude.
I mean,
all
really,
I'm saying is
really,
it's not very inclusive, is it?
Where did it's fine. Because there is no right. It is because sexuality does not include is nothing to do with race. That people can be gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, and be any other color. They don't. That the color thing is separate, and people that try to fucking
okay, but dude.
Why do I know this?
Where's the attack helicopter colour?
Where is the fucking? Oh, that's the red. Now why? But what is the word? Why is this a fucking issue? Why is who sticks what in what fucking hole of what type of person? Any sort of an issue other than between 2 or maybe 3 consenting adults? Why is the
and sometimes a tree? Oh, I think I might break your brain there a bit.
Don't want to know. Nothing to do with me. If they don't,
No, they just love the earth.
Someone has wood for wood. That's. I'm very happy for them.
Well, you just did all their marketing for them right there. Good for you.
Got wood for wood. Okay, right. It's midnight, dude, and I don't know about you. I'm about ready to wrap this stream up, because we could go on. We've only got halfway through this god awful document that is absolutely. It's just cack filled. I mean, I'd rather read Marx's fucking manifesto than this shit. At least he was unabashedly a communist. These people, oh no, we're not communists, we're socialists, and we're always going to get private up. Ugh. Scum.
Well, yeah. I mean, this, as you rightly said at the start, we may need an additional breakdown session.
I need a break from this, to be honest, at this point, I think, because there's only so much I can read and rant about communists before I get annoyed, and it's I can sum up the Labour Manifesto pretty swiftly, to be honest, having flicked through a lot of it and read very little other than a skim reading of it, but I've seen what I need to see. Is they're good at being wrong. They're wrong about a lot, and all of it is pretty terrible. They don't have a freaking clue. Their ideas on delivering a Brexit is to basically renegotiate a new, worse deal with Europe, and then give everybody the choice of a terrible deal or joining back to Europe. So their ideas on Europe and Brexit is to fail to deliver Brexit.
Well, dude, don't you understand?
No, no, no. Let me
We
finish.
had a referendum. We gave the wrong answer, so they have to do it again without that answer on the paper.
Yeah, precisely. So they intend to betray at least 52% of the country on their electoral decision. They intend to shaft everybody as much as possible. And even if you think they're doing good by you, they're not. They're giving you the shaft because they're just going to tax you. They're going to make you unemployed. They're going to ruin your chances of actually getting a job if you don't already have one. And they want you on the dole. They want you poor. In fact, they want equality. They want equality. They want everybody poor. It's as simple as that. It's the only way to give equality, to ensure equality in the country, is to make everybody poor. The only people that won't be poor will be the Labour Party. Because this is what always happens with communists, is fuck everybody else. They are for, it is actually every single time we see communism take up, the only people that are wealthy are the very few elites right at the top of the party. Everybody else is completely impoverished. We see that in Cuba, we saw that in Cambodia, we've seen that in Vietnam, we saw it in Russia, we see it in China. China's actually getting itself out of it. You know why China's getting itself out of it? Because China is not totally communist anymore. You know what China is now? China is basically a nationalist socialist organisation. They're closer to the Nazis, a functioning Nazi country, than we have ever seen anywhere in the world, other than, of course, Germany during the 40s. And they are equally as horrific to their populace as the Nazis were back in their time period. And look at what they do. Look into China. That is the end goal. You want a successful communist country, it pretty much always ends up as either breaking down and going capitalist again after killing vast amounts, up to usually somewhere between 10 and 20% of their population die in this process, and then they come out of the other side of it as either capitalist as hell or bordering on National Socialist. So if you want 10% of the population to die in poverty, in forced labour camps, or extermination, or basic purity killings, if you want everything to essentially get back to being capitalist in 40 years' time after we've massacred and crucified and killed huge amounts of people, vote for Labour. Labour, I'm sure, will do wonders if you have a communist utopia and hellhole in mind. But otherwise, God help us, vote anything other than them. Dare I say it, the Conservatives are a better choice. There are no great choices here, but Labour, miles worse than anything else. Apart from maybe the Greens, because they're just incompetent.
Or the Lib Dems, I guess. But it's like my mate often says.
If you like the Lib Dems, think this. If you're thinking about voting Lib Dems, think this. You'll be voting for the third female Prime Minister that England has ever had. And if you want to know how well she's going to do, just think of the other two. She's not going to be as good as the first. She might be a little worse than the second. But don't take the chance.
Well, that's a harrowing thought, isn't it?
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
Vote for Lib Dems if you think no, just don't. Just good God, no.
But look, it's like my mate says when it comes to Labour, is that the Labour way of operating is everyone is equal, but some people are more equal than others.
Yes,
that's the best way to sum it up.
Well, it's Animal Farm, isn't it? Dare I say it? Or George Orwell.
Literally Animal Farm.
George Orwell was somewhat of a visionary, and unfortunately, his vision was a nightmare. And I know everyone invokes Orwell an awful lot these days, but god damn it if he wasn't an awful lot right. But there's one other one that we need to evoke as well, and that's Aldous Huxley, because it is a bit of a Brave New World as well. It's another good book. Anyone that hasn't read it should read that. I strongly recommend it. It's more of a fun read than 1984, I'll say that, but it's only a little bit. Anyway,
Right. Well,
I think
I think we should pause here. You know, we're about halfway through the document. Although I think most of the spicy stuff is yet to come. So tune in for the next time.
indeed we'll just fade out with a little music and wish you all a good night.
Is it the music I think it is?
It might be.
I hope you're saluting with your eyebrow.
I'm not a communist, but as I said, I actually quite like this piece of music. It's quite powerful. They know their national anthems. This is a strong anthem, and so on that note, I will try to work out how to switch off the stream. And
for all our many viewers, until next time.
Das Vidania.
Das Vidania.